Welcome, future masters. I'm going to start this as a series explained for kids or other less high-rated players. So if you're not a high-rated player, I'm going to explain these problems to you, hopefully to where you can understand them. All right, let's go. First thing you got to look at here, black is threatening to checkmate us, so we better get on the ball. Fortunately for us, we have a forced checkmate because his bishop only guards e8, but we're going to go to a different square. So his bishop retreats to where it has to go, and rook takes bishop. I'm sorry, as my father would say, rook takes free bishop. Checkmate. So, well, this guy has knight checked us. He thinks he's a superstar of some kind. I don't know why, but so the question we have is, well, we really can't let him just sit there and take our queen. Take our bishop on e3. If you see, he's got a queen attacking it from e7, a bishop from h6, and a knight from g4. So if we don't take this knight, he's going to take our bishop. Well, I'm taking your knight. You're not getting my bishop. You can have it. That's fine, because it's 2 versus 2. So let me show you this before I kill it. This knight, that's a free knight for us, okay? Now, he has 1, 2, which is the bishop and queen, attacking my bishop. My bishop has 1, queen, 2, king. 2 versus 2, that is even. That means we defend successfully. King takes bishop, we win. If you'll notice, we have 2 knights and 2 rooks. He's got 2 rooks and 1 bishop. So 2 knights are better than 1 bishop. We won a piece. Okay, now he's threatening to queen this pawn. We could stop that with rook to c1, but also, if you look at his king, he's hidden behind the hedge of pawns and no defender for a8. So a rook to a8 will be forcing a checkmate on him. His rook goes back, rook captures rook, checkmate. Same story here. Now this is a classic king and rook mating formation. This is the formation that you will end a game with if you're playing just king and rook versus king. The kings are in opposition, and you just go to the back rank, checkmate. Okay, now you look at this and say, hey, his rook is attacking my queen. Well, I could take his rook. Yeah, but he'll take your queen. That's true. But just count the defenders and count the attackers. I want you to learn to, when you have this position where you can attack, you're going to count your attackers. I have queen and rook. That's 2 attackers. He has 1 defender of the rook, which is the knight. The queen does not defend. So 2 versus 1. 2 beats 1. Now, the order here says we're going to lose our queen for this rook, but that's okay because we're going to take his knight and checkmate him. Watch. 2 versus 1. Oh, now it's 1 versus 0. There's no defender of the knight. 1 versus 0 is checkmate. Okay, the queen steps back. Now I checkmate it. So pretty basic stuff. Okay, now we have, he's threatening our rook with his bishop, which is not good for us. But we have another move, and that is actually a good question. Let me think about this. This guy is 2 pieces ahead of us. What a freak. Yeah, our move is clearly simple. We're going to play pawn to e2 and pawn fork his rook and his queen. Now, when our pawn goes here, it will have the queen defending it, that's 1, and the rook defending it, which is 2. And you might say, well, he can play bishop takes our rook. Yeah, but we have another rook just like it. So we're always going to have a rook here, regardless of if he takes it or not. So I'm not really worried about that. So I'm going to go here pawn forking the knight, the rook, or the queen. And he moves one away, I'm going to take the other one. You'd have to move it away really. He's in bad shape. So watch this, pawn fork. That's over, game over. It's so bad. All right, now you have bishop and queen together. You should always say, if I have bishop and queen on the same line, that's called a battery. Where can they go? Well, the queen can go, anywhere the queen goes is protected by the bishop, which is like queen to e6 check is protected by the bishop. Now, he'll take it and he'll take it back. That's not a good deal for us. Queen to g8, it's also protected by the bishop. But rook takes queen, and bishop takes rook. It's not a good deal. We don't want to trade our queen for a rook unless we're checkmating a guy, or same thing for a bishop. However, if we play queen to f7, watch this. You see this? This is a checkmate. This is one of the most basic checkmate formations. You need to learn this if you don't already know it. Okay, this is what I call a whoops mate. Whoops meaning you just make a move and it's checkmate. There's nothing you could do. So hopefully you see this move. Dun 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 dun. Checkmate. This is not a whoops checkmate. This is a whoops knight fork. Do you see the knight fork of his king and queen? Hopefully you see it now. Knight takes queen. Thank you. Okay, this one's a slightly more complicated. This is a two-part, well, maybe three parts actually, when you get down to it. But we're going to put an attack on this guy's back rank. Whenever the king is checked by a rook in the back rank, you need to look at that and go, well, does he have an escape? The king doesn't have an escape, but this bishop does. Now, we could play pawn takes bishop. That wins a bishop. But he's going to win one of our pieces, and we're not interested in that. So watch this. We check him. Guess what happens? His king can't move, so his bishop has to come back. That's fine. Now we're going to show you something called the bump and score. So we made this guy make a move. Now we're going to check this king and force him away from the thing he's defending. This is what I call the bump. This is the bump. 7 check is a bump. Bumps him off the bishop's defense. Now anyone should be able to see that rook takes bishop is a checkmate. Pretty good. Let's see. We have... That's no good. Here's a similar concept. We're going to do bump and score again. This one's a little more complicated. But we could play knight takes knight. We could play rook takes rook. We can check him. Knight takes f6. He just plays pawn takes free knight. That's not good. Ooh, look, we have knight to c7 check. Well, where's he going to go? You can't block a knight check. You have to move. Well, he goes to king f7. Oh, no, he can't go to f7. My bishop guards that now because the knight moved out of the way. Now, this what I'm showing you here is called visualization. We're going to visualize that knight is here, but we're not going to play it. Knight checks. King cannot go here. King cannot go to d7 or f7, the white squares. He can go to the green square, which is king to f8. However, look what happens. I can tell you what happens, but look what happens when I make the moves. Knight checks, and then king f8. See something that no longer is defended. Hopefully you said yes, and that thing is this rook. That's a checkmate right here. So, moving on to the next one. Oh, this is what is known as a decoy. A decoy is a move that you make that makes a piece go to a bad square. So what happens is, if you see this queen and this rook, they're both on dark squares. Our knight is also on a dark square, which means there's a possibility it can move and attack one of these dark square guys. In this case, you'll see a square that it actually can attack both of them. Well, if I play knight to d7 and attack both of these guys with a knight fork, his king will just take it. So what if we make the king move? Nothing makes a king move faster than check. Rook takes rook, check. Decoyed into the bad square. Now, look at our knight. Doesn't he have this beautiful square? Knight d7 check, winning the queen. So that is, that's a decoy. This is another type of attack where we can check the king with the queen. And queens are dangerous, especially when they have helpers in the neighborhood of the king like this bishop. We're going to check this guy. Watch where he has to go. If he goes, he can't go anywhere else, actually. His king to f2 is forced. So now we're going to check this guy again, and nobody can take it. And one more time, queen to e2, checkmate. All right, this one is a special sequence that I invented the name called the snapback. What happens here is that we can take this knight with our bishop, or we can take this knight with our knight. If we take this with our bishop, pawn takes bishop, nothing has happened. We're even. If I take this with the knight, what it does is it opens up an attack on this bishop with the queen and bishop, so that's a 2-for-1 against the bishop. And he has to make a choice. Does he play bishop takes bishop, or does he play pawn takes knight? Well, what happens is no matter which way he goes, I win, because the snapback, I get the option of knight takes knight. And if he takes with the bishop, my knight would come back, removing himself from danger, and take the bishop, being a knight ahead. But since knight took my knight, I play bishop takes bishop, plays knight takes bishop, and I play queen takes knight. And you'll notice I'm one knight ahead. This is called the snapback. Go back and look at that one again on a replay and see what's happening. Make it a little bit better. Now, this is an example of a discovered attack. So our queen threatens this bishop if our knight moves, doesn't it? Like knight to f6. I'm going to grab this. If I go knight to f6 over here, you see how I'm opening attack on the bishop? Same thing if I go to e5, but he would just take it. But look, if I take this knight and open the attack on the bishop and then use the knight to attack something more valuable like a queen, his queen has to move away or I'm going to take his queen. And so now I've opened this attack for the bishop. So this discovered attack of knight b6 attacking the queen gives me queen takes free bishop. That's how my dad would say it. Oh, bishop takes pawn check. Do you want a medal? King to h8. Ha ha. So here's an interesting move. Now, what you'll see, the numbers of these problems increase every problem because the difficulties are increasing every problem. So eventually you'll get to a point where you're not going to be able to solve the problems, but that's okay. Just continue following me and you're going to see what happens when a very strong player solves these problems. Bang, bang. Whoa. Dude, you're dead. He's dead. I have a move that's a whoops checkmate. There's nothing you can do. Notice my knight guards b5, my knight guards d5, these white squares. His king cannot move here by pawns, prevent him from moving to the third rank. So the only squares he can move to is king b4 or king to d4. Well, I have a whoops checkmate. Whoops. Rook to f4 is checkmate. That's because those two white squares are covered. Always take the time to analyze a check move, because there's an old saying that says, and it's not correct, but always check, it might be mate. Well, that's not really true. The phrase is probably originally always analyze a check because it might be mate, because that check was a mate, just without nothing else. Just one check, that's it. Okay, what happens here? Look at his king. His king has no good squares. You check him, he can go to king to d8, and that's it. Well, I can check him. I can check him on c8, which loses to rook takes free queen. That's no good. I can play queen to g6 check. He's got pawn or queen takes, which wins for him. But I have another move that's better. I have this move now. He's got another response. Watch the response he will play. That's the only move that stops checkmate. Maybe I get scared and run away, but not me. I'm taking this because I can see this is checkmate. Queen goes right here, protected by the pawn. Checkmate. Okay, black to win. No question. Bang, 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 bang. Yes, and I queen. What happens is I'm going to queen this pawn with check. So now you'll learn this over time. I'm a terrific king and pawn endgame player. And I always say I'm a master and then some of king and pawn endings. So I'm going to transfer this queen and pawn ending by taking this pawn, checking, and forcing him to trade queens. I'm going to turn it into a king and pawn endgame and easily win this. Because what happens is that the square of the pawn, this is a passed pawn, and it creates a square of places. In the square, which is 5 by 5, if the king is not in this square on his move, he will never catch this pawn. So pawn takes queen, he'll never catch my pawn. He's not in the square, he's just outside the 5 by 5, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see the square? I go C4, C3, and I'm going to queen. Well, I'm not going to queen with check, but I'm going to queen ahead of him. Okay, this guy just walks into checkmate. Remember when I told you the king and across from the king in opposition is checkmate? Well, the same thing happens if the king has a pawn in that same location, because the pawn guards the same squares the king would guard. So this is rook to whatever square, A8 checkmate. Okay, now, man, I'm going to teach you guys this one. This is an awesome one. This is what I call the side rank checkmate. And all you have to know is that wherever the king is castled, if these squares 1, 2, and 3 are controlled by pawns or by another piece, in this case, G1 will be controlled by my knight. If I control 1, 2, 3, a check on this file will checkmate the king. So, knight checks. Now look, I guard this empty square. The 2 pawns block it. That's 1, 2, 3, check to go. Rook to A8 check. He's going to take it with his bishop. I don't care. I got another rook just like it, remember? Check. Bishop goes back, and now rook takes bishop, and guess what? It's a checkmate. This is a side rank checkmate. Go back and study this one again. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. Okay. Now, what do we have? That's a good question. Oh, this is an easy mate. This is what is known as the ladder idea. The ladder idea is like by climbing a ladder rung by rung. The rooks can do this sideways or vertically. Vertically, it looks more like a ladder with the rook. If the rook went to G5 and then 1 to F6, they just alternate. So what I'm going to do, this pawn is blocking the king and also shielding him, but it prevents him from escaping. That's the key part. So it's a blocker, so is this guy. So we're going to ladder. I'm going to ladder this rook here to G4, finish him on the back rank with the other rook. So the 2 rooks on the H and G files, that's a horizontal ladder. You'll see it again later and you'll understand it better. That's not the greatest explanation of it, but it is a good enough explanation to help you in the beginning. Okay, I could take his rook. I could do a lot of things, but look, he's got his back rank. When his king is behind these pawns, you always got to look. Hey, you got a back rank attack, and is it checkmate? Well, this one is a back rank attack, but it's not checkmate yet, but it will be checkmate. This is what is known as queen takes free bishop. That's what my dad would say. So let's take the free bishop. And we're doing it with check, or even better. He's like, it's not checkmate. Well, let me introduce you guys, if you don't know this, to a thing called the X-ray. Now, the queen attacks his queen, right? His rook is defending that queen. But guess what? In the same line as the rook and the queen, I have a rook who X-ray attacks the queen on F1. You're saying, but the rook is in the way. But the rook won't be in the way when he recaptures my queen. Watch. So this rook You have to look at this and learn that this rook is actually attacking this queen. This is known as the X-ray, and it will be shown to you when I play queen takes queen check. I take, and guess what? Now, didn't I tell you that this rook attacks f1? It doesn't attack the queen necessarily, it attacks the square. And when the rook moves to f1, this is one attacker to 0 defenders, right? Checkmate. That is a classic back rank checkmate. All right, now look at this pawn and this knight. The knight guards f6, the pawn guards the bishop on e6, the knight guards d6. So we've got a line that the king cannot penetrate. So we can play rook to g7 check. It's bad news for him. He's forced, he has only 2 moves, rook f8 or king f8 or king to e8. So let's see where he goes and I'll show you what to do from there. Fine. This is fairly easy. We're going to knight check this guy. Well, not here, he'll take it. So we don't want him to take our knight because we're trying to checkmate him. So the knight can't be taken here. I like this one. What happens, this guards e8 and g8. It'll force his king. Remember, his line is blocked. He's got to go to f8. So knight f6 check. Then one of the formations you will learn over time is that knight and rook and king in the same line. This is a checkmate right here. Go back and study this one again to make sure you understand it. The bishop can be anywhere. He can be all the way back on a2. He just has, some piece has to protect the rook. Could be a knight, could be anything. Okay, so now what? This is another beauty. You see this rook here on f2. It is pinning this pawn. And when you pin a pawn against the king, it cannot defend, it doesn't defend anything. It's powerless. It doesn't exist. So it exists in the context of stopping the rook's attack against the king, but it cannot move. So it defends supposedly h3, but really it doesn't. So what happens is, you see, how many pieces do I have attacking h3, the white square? Hopefully you saw the queen. Hopefully you see this one. Ding, 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 bishop. Well, I can play queen takes pawn, and it's checkmate. Now, I don't play it right now. I want you to visualize this, because it's going to flip instantly and disappear to the next map, next board. Queen takes pawn is checkmate because the bishop prevents it from being captured. The king cannot capture it. The pawn cannot capture it because of the pin. So, even though there's a pawn guarding this pawn, and so is this king, really, the king is only one guardian, and the queen and the bishop are 2 attackers. So I win. And this is checkmate. Okay, now this is starting to get tougher. My father has the greatest rule in all of chess. Okay? That means it's greater than Bobby Fischer. It's greater than Garry Kasparov. It's greater than Magnus Carlsen. My dad's rule is the greatest rule in chess. My dad says, ask yourself, what is this guy trying to do to me? If you ask that question and you are able to correctly answer it, that will tell you how you need to continue in your game. It's that powerful. I am not joking. So, now that I've told you the secret, we have to use my father's secret to not lose this game, because we're about to lose. This guy is threatening not one queen to g2 checkmate, but he's threatening 2 checkmates, queen take to h1. So queen to g2 and queen to h1. He's threatening not 1 but 2 checkmates. So we have to somehow stop 2 different checkmates. Dude, that's not going to be easy. So what we have to do basically is check this guy. If we don't check him, we're not making it. So that's a toughie. So what do we have here? the first thing that comes to mind is bishop takes pawn check. The move has to be a check or we lose, okay? Or we have to capture one of these pieces, which we cannot capture. So if we bishop check this guy, you know, oh man, yeah, we got this right. Bishop checks this guy. King takes. He cannot avoid capturing the bishop because the knight guards the square. So bishop takes, king takes is the only legal move, easy to calculate. So after that, the only check we have is either knight to f5 or queen to g5 check. So I'm going to play this move. I already know this is correct. I already know the win, but I want you guys to see it step by step. So bishop takes pawn check. Let's see how he recaptures. We already know, but I want you to see this visually. I already see it. Now the correct move here is if we play knight to f5 check, he's just going to go back into his cubbyhole. King to h8, and nothing we can do will ever check him again, and he's going to checkmate us. We have another move that checks him, though, and that's queen to h6 check or queen to g5 check. Queen to h6 check, he will play king or queen takes, and we're dead. It's just, a matter of one or two moves, it's checkmate. So we can't go queen to h6 check. Scratch that move. We have queen to g5 check. Is that any good? Well, the answer is yes. Now watch and see why it's good. This is where chess visualization comes into play. Now, again, use my father's rule. What is he trying to do to me? Still, we've stopped one checkmate. He cannot checkmate us on g2, but he's got h1, right? So if we don't check him, we're going to get checkmated. We can check him on g8. Rook takes here loses for us. We win. He wins. So queen to g8, rook takes queen check, and he's winning, and he'll checkmate us. So can't do that. We can go queen to g7 check. He'll just play king takes g7. Again, we will be checkmated on the next move. That's no good. The only other check we have is this one, queen to f6. Now, do you see what happens? His king has no spot because the knight guards g8 and the queen holds f6, g7, and h8. So I want to show this to you again before I finish him off. Okay, so he played the killer move, bishop takes f3, but we're far too smart for this guy. Bishop takes pawn check, followed by king takes bishop, followed by queen to g5 check. Our bishop is gone. He goes king to h8, and we're going to play queen to f6 checkmate. Now, that is a 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the 5 move. This is a 5 move combination that wins. This is what is known as visualization. When your visualization powers increase like mine, you see these things. So now, once again, look at this. I smell side rank checkmate. So what I need to do is look. You see this bishop? 1 blocked. That's 2. And if we can block this guy, this square, we'll have a side rank checkmate. If I go knight to g6, he has to play pawn takes knight because no other move is legal. And that gives us the blockage. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, all check, check, and check. Check meaning like you're on a launch sequence on a rocket. We're checking it off as go, go, go. This says go for queen to h3, side rank checkmate. Check it out. So when you'll hear me do this in my other videos, 1, 2, 3, it's side rank checkmate time. That is the launch signal. Queen almost always gets in there, and you just take it. Queen takes queen for free, checkmate. Uh-oh. 1, 2, 3, fire rockets. That's how fast it is. I'm glad they had one right there, right after my other one. 2 side ranks in a row. You saw that's how we do it. 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. I mean, you know, go, go, go. I say check, but it's not check, because in chess, check means something different. So we launched our rocket. Now, what we're doing here, this is not a question of what is black trying to do to me. It's what am I going to do to him? And I'm going to queen this pawn, one of these two pawns. I'm going to make a queen out of it, and I'm going to win the game because of it. Now, one of the things you'll learn over time is that two connected passed pawns on the 6th rank or 6th and 7th rank by themselves beat a rook. So when I played this move, c6, these two pawns are better than this rook already. So that is a super important concept. So now what I'm going to do is I got to look at this and analyze. I think I'm going to play c7, pushing the pawn forward, attacking his rook, threatening to queen or threatening to take. Can he take? He can take one of them, which is this one. And then I'm going to follow that up with one of the pawn queening tricks that I'll show you. It's really good. So c7 is the correct move. Now we have two pawns on the 7th rank. If he plays rook takes, we're going to queen this other pawn. If I play pawn to c8 queen, knight takes free queen. Well, that's terrible. I don't want that. But I have one of the tricks when you have a pawn here on the 7th rank. A rook on the adjacent file, which is the file that's next to the one the pawn is on, can go to the 8th rank and check the guy, check the opponent's king, and it will not be, you cannot capture the rook because pawn will retake the rook and it becomes a queen. So this is the move, check. Rook takes free knight, check. Now, well, we're good. So there's another trick you have to know. This is the second trick of queening a pawn, is that the rook, if the rook can get out of here with a threat on a piece, like a queen or some other piece, or a king with check, he can queen the pawn because you're clearing the way for the pawn. So look at this, rook to e8 check. King takes free rook, ha 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 ha, uh-oh. Pawn to c8 equals queen, check, you lose. So now when you saw multiple tricks, you saw the two pawns are better than a rook trick. What's a rule, not a trick? Then you saw me play rook to b8 check, and then he put the knight there. I took the knight in front of the pawn on c8, and then he had moved his king over, and I played rook to e8, checking the king, clearing the road for the pawn. So that one had multiple tricks in that one. So go back and look at that one again and make sure you understand what's going on. It's a little complicated, but something you will learn if you look at it and study it. It's pretty basic stuff, but it's a little, you know, it takes more than just a minute or two that I showed you here. Okay, now let's see what my dad's telling me. My dad's telling me, what is he trying to do to me? I don't know. I have, I could play rook to g1 check, king to e2. I could play rook takes rook, he goes king takes rook, and I could play queen to, queen to g1. Doesn't really do much. Not impressed with that move. Now I also have another move that's interesting called queen takes h3 check. What do we have? We have 5 pawns. He's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That guy's got 2 more pawns than me. I do not like that. Let's look at queen takes h3 pawn check. He goes king to e1, the only possible move. Well, he could play queen to g2, but queen takes free queen check, and it's protected by my rook. He loses. He's not going to do that. Another rule, that's a great rule. When you're analyzing these games or positions, don't assume your opponent is going to play a bad move. Assume he plays the best move possible. Hopefully it's one that you see. But if you're trying to beat his best move, anything less than his best, you've got it easy. So, queen takes h3 check. What are we doing? He's got king to e1 or king to e2 now. If he goes king to e1, we'd hit him with sideways. We'd move this queen. Queen takes c3 check. Boy, that's juicy. All right? We've taken 2 pawns in 2 moves. We've got our pawns back, and we still have the initiative, and we're checking him. So we're doing some business. So let's assume queen takes pawn check. King to e2 is better. So now what are we going to do? Oh, it doesn't matter where he goes. We don't want to go, if we take him check, we don't want to, if he goes king to e1, we don't want to take this pawn. That's a bad move. When he moves his king to e1 or e2, look at these two. The king is one of these 2 squares, and they're lined up right here. I just can move rook over, and I win his queen. So he's dead. This wins. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of looking around. See how the queen and king are lined up together? Well, I got a king that can guard this rook. You lose. Sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes it isn't. Okay. Now this is a really good one. Maybe you see the move, maybe you don't. And maybe you see the idea, even if you don't know which way is the best way to do it. What I see here, what jumps off the page at me, is queen and bishop are both attacking this c3 pawn where the yellow square is. Okay? So, what that means to me is that I can take this, I can play either piece, either bishop or queen takes c3 check, and he's in trouble. Now, I already know which way to go, but I'm trying to look at this from a kid's perspective. A kid may not know. He's like, well, let's use the bishop. We don't want to lose our queen, which is not a bad idea. So we go bishop takes c3, which is bishop takes pawn check, and it forks his king and his rook. That's really good, but he's got a good defensive move, and if you don't see it, that's fine. I'm going to show it to you so you'll think about it in the future. He'll be able to play bishop to d2 blocking. The bishop blocks another bishop with the same power, which is always nice. Okay? We don't want to stick a knight in there because the knight does not attack the bishop that's attacking it. If you take bishop takes here on c3, bishop to d2 attacks the bishop that's attacking him. So he can neutralize him, potentially, which is what would happen. And if he does that, we cannot play bishop takes rook because he plays bishop takes queen. That's terrible. So this is one of the old tricks. You got to move like when you have 2 moves, like bishop takes c3 or queen takes c3. We looked at bishop takes c3, and it's not very good. He has a great defensive move. So we don't play this and say, well, I sure hope he doesn't play bishop to d2, because then you're hoping to win. I'm here, it's a business. I say, flip the moves. You didn't like A, let's go with B. Well, the B move is queen takes. This is the right move, so I'm going to play it. What happened is it forces, it does attack king and rook with check. It also attacked the queen that was unguarded. The queen has to capture. So he took the queen, and now you see that we're saving the bishop for last. Kaboom, baby. Bishop takes queen. We're even. We won a pawn. We checked his king and forked his king and rook. And now, knight to d2. Bishop takes free rook. That's what my father would say. A rook for free. Because we paid attention and we weren't moving fast and we weren't being greedy. Don't be greedy. Don't be hasty is, I guess, the correct word. So here what jumps out at me is this one. These are 1600 already. Pretty tough for some of you guys, and I'm here to help. Jumps out at me is queen to h2 check. When I see this knight on g4 and a queen on this diagonal, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to check this guy. So the knight guards f2, so king to f1 is his only move. That's the only legal move he has. Well, now I could play pawn, queen takes pawn. I don't think that's the right move. I think queen check is the right move. So again, king e2, the only move possible. So what do we do now? Well, we could play queen takes pawn check. My queen, remember, went to the corner. Queen takes pawn check. We're attacking this rook. It's okay. His queen is defending. It's all right. So now what's he going to do? He could go to d3. He's on e2. We checked him. He could go to e1, e1, d1, or d3. But to make it easier on you guys, I'm going to go and show you because I don't want to strain your visualization. Let's get closer to where it is and let you retake. Oh, see, he didn't move there. He decided he would put this in its place. He would interpose it. Now, here's the thing. Look at the material that's on the board. So right now, we have, when you're counting material, count the minor pieces, which is the bishop and the knight is the same. So I have 2 minor pieces. He has 2 minor pieces. He has 2 rooks. I have 2 rooks. He has a queen. I have a queen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. I got 5 pawns. This game is dead even on material. So a lot of you guys and lower rated players have this fear of trading queens as a general rule, or they like to trade it all the time. When you're capturing material, in this case, knight takes rook, the knight is a 3-point piece and the rook is a 5. So in this situation, when you're capturing this, when you're capturing material and winning material, like rook versus knight, you would like to trade your queen with that if you can. So the correct move here is queen takes rook, forces queen takes queen. Watch. And now knight takes queen, and look what happens. Before I complete this move, he'll have 1 knight, I have 1 knight. I have 2 rooks, he's got rook and bishop. So I have the exchange ahead, which is rook for bishop. Okay, so that was terrific. We've got 31 in a row, and we're not stopping yet. So what we have here is really 2 moves that jump out. Queen to g4 check, which is right here, and queen to f1 check. Now queen to g4, he's probably just going to go in the hidey hole. In fact, he's forced to go in the hidey hole of king g2. And if we check him again, he just goes right back. So either we, perpetually check him, which doesn't do us any good really, or queen g4 is not the right move. Trust me, queen g4 is not the right move. So let's check him here. If we check him on f1, that forces him to go here to h4. So I know what's going to happen, and I want you to see it yourself. So I'm going to check him on the right square. This is the correct move. So now look what I can do. I can check him with my rook. This is an example of pieces working together. Now, do you see where you can check this guy again? You have 3 different checks. You have rook to g5 check, rook to h4 check. Both of those are terrible. I'm just helping you out. We have one other check, queen to h3 check. Now, do you see this is a ladder mate, where the one rung of the ladder is the g file, the other rung is on the h file. So queen to h3 is checkmate. Right here, you see this? This is a checkmate. I mean, I'm doing this, and I might be doing some of these problems too fast for you. I'm trying not to go fast, but one of the weaknesses that a good player has, like myself, is that sometimes we go faster than the kid is going, okay? But I'm aware of this possibility. So if I'm going too fast, that doesn't matter. Go back and rewatch this and take your own time. Use the pause button to pause what's going on and think what's happening. The more you pause and think, the faster you're going to get better. Okay, so now see, one of the things I have is that now I've been playing chess for over 50 years. That's 50. My dad taught me how to play chess around 1969 or maybe the end of 1968. It was a long time ago. And I have a lot of experience, and I also have something that you don't hear other players talk about. I have a spidey sense for chess. My spidey senses in chess are very good, which is why I won a lot of tournaments. They're not perfect. No one's perfect. But you got to learn to trust your spidey senses, or trust Obi-Wan. Use the Force. So whatever it takes for you, whatever works, do it. Now, what is he trying to do to me? Well, right now, he's not trying to do anything concrete against me. He cannot check my king. Okay, he can check my king on g4, okay? So that means that we either have to move this king. We cannot allow queen g4 check and queen takes pawn. That cannot be allowed to happen. If it happens, we lose. I guarantee you we lose. So either I move my king or I move the pawn. Now, me, I'm a greedy guy. I want to move this pawn and get it one step closer to queening. That's me. You might want to hide your king, and that's not the right move, but I'm just letting you know, good luck with that. So I can already tell you, my spidey senses tell me, play h2, and my next move is going to be queen. He can check me. I'm going to go hide back here. He can check me one more time. King to a7. And after that, there's no more checks that are good. He can only check me back here, throwing his queen away. But I am going to queen this pawn. h2. Oh, he didn't do it. Well, that's your problem, not mine. Queen. No, I cannot queen. Look, my father's rule. What is he trying to do to me? He's trying to do this. That freak. He's trying to play queen to e8 checkmate. You got to be kidding me, right? I have a solution for this move. The solution for this move is quite clever and necessary. Actually, it may not be necessary. I may have a better move. No, I don't. Okay, here's the thing that doesn't work. King to b8. He plays queen checks on f8. King a7. Queen to c5 check. And either it's a perpetual check and a draw, or if I move here, it's a perpetual check by queen takes c7 and then queen to c8. So those don't work. But I have another solution because I'm awesome. Sacrificed my rook to his king. He had to take it or I would take his queen. And now I queen with check. Goodbye. I'm awesome. Okay, so that's the thing. Now, black is winning. Except that he's dead lost. Well, he will be dead lost if we do this correctly. The thing is, he's checking me. Let's look on the other side. Let's lose my father's rule to say, not what is he trying to do to me, but the opposite of my father's rule, which in math is called the corollary, is what are we trying to do to him? We're trying to play rook to h8 checkmate. That's what we're trying to do, okay? Because this pawn guards this square. So this is what we're trying to do to him. We're trying to checkmate him. Okay? So we need to do something that's useful. The choices we have are not many. We have 3 moves. We have king g1, we have king g3, and king h3. Now king h3 doesn't seem to really be anything special. Okay? So he's got a bishop a bishop and a rook against 2 rooks, but man, that dude's got a lot of pawns. He's got 4 good pawns. We have 2 garbage pawns. Those 2 pawns are garbage. You may not know it now, but trust me, when I tell you they're garbage, they're garbage. He's got 4 great pawns. We've got 2 bad ones. So he's got 2 pawns and a bishop for one of my rooks. And his pawns are good pawns, so he's got the advantage right now. H3 is not good. He's going to play rook f3 check. I don't like it. It's too dangerous. I got king g1. He can play rook checks. I'll just play king to f1, and there's no more messing with me. The problem he will have, he's going to have to play g6 or g5. He's dead lost. We got to double check this. If I go here, if I go to g3, he goes rook checks. I go back here, and he's making some kind of hay. To me, this is the right move. This check is irrelevant. I'm just trying to go where I'm no longer being checked. Because as soon as I stop being checked, I checkmate this guy. Well, you check me, king takes free rook. Believe me, he was checkmated. That's why he gave up his piece. Okay, now, I said to you earlier, I'm going to say it to you again, and every time you see me play a king and pawn endgame in any of my videos, I say this phrase all the time. I am a master and then some on king and pawn endgames. So what happens is, let me explain this to you. If you're not good at king and pawn endgames, even if you're 1500 or 1600 or 1700, I'm going to teach you how to play king and pawn endgames better than anybody else teaches it. Even if they're a better player than me, I teach it better. It's because I'm a science and math guy. I teach it like a physics teacher. Okay, so what happens is this. I look at this problem. I see 2 sections to this problem. Now, if you don't know what those 2 sections are, I'm going to explain it to you. And I'm really good at this. Sometimes there's 3 sections. Sometimes there's 1. Sometimes there's 4. There can be any number. It's not a number I make up out of the blue. This is like how a musician reads music. You read the music on a sheet of paper, and if it says C, D, and then E, well, that's 3 musical notes. I didn't make those up. Somebody else made it up. They wrote the music, and we wrote it on paper, and there you go. I'm just reading the music. So I'm looking at this. I'm reading the music. There's 2 different sections. Section 1 is the, let me see. This is the H file, okay, with the 2 pawns on it. That's the H file. So section 1 is the H file. My king has to stop the H pawns. I have no pawns in the area, and there's nothing else. It's just my king and my pawns. So section 1 is the H file, and you can flip the numbers. It doesn't matter. Section 2 is the B and C files. And on the B and C files, black has a 2 versus 1. Over here, white on the H file has a 2 versus 0, but really it's 1 versus 0. These 2 pawns, they count the same. Because if I stop 1, I stop 2. It doesn't matter. Okay, and if he queens 1, he doesn't need to queen the other one. So realistically, for practical purposes, the H2 pawn doesn't exist as far as we're concerned. But it's there. Okay, so that I'm not trying to get nitpicky. So let's just go H file is section 1, B and C is section 2. Now, what you have to learn when you're reading the music is that my king has to stay in the square of the advanced pawn, which is the H6 pawn, right? So the H6 pawn sits on square 1, square 2, square 3 is the queening square. So he's in a 3 by 3 square. Do you see this? Which covers from F6 to F8 to H8 to H6. My queen is in this square, so no matter where this pawn moves, I will kill him if he gets to the queening square by just following him. If he goes H7, I go king G7. If he queens, I go king takes queen or rook or whatever it turns into. I don't care. I'm not trying to get caught up into the tiny details. When you got the whole thing right, it speaks for itself and it plays itself. So now, we've understood that section 1, our king will stop these pawns. I move to section 2. Section 2, his king must try to do the same thing, and guess what? It ain't happening. That king never gets to this pawn because this pawn is in a 4x4. Look where he's at. His king takes 2 moves to get in the square of this guy, and that's too long. I'm going to push this pawn c4, and then my next move after that, as long as the h pawn is under control, c4 and b3, followed by c takes b, b2 and b1 queening. There's nothing you can do about it. So after we analyze section 1, our king beats his pawns, and analyze section 2, these 2 beat this 1, and his king cannot reach the b file. We win. This game is over. The winning move is not, you don't need to move the king unless this pawn moves. That's the other part of section 1. If this pawn doesn't move, my king doesn't move. If he moves, we move in to close ground and squash him. So I don't play king to g6. I play c4. This wins. Now, what did I tell you? If he moves, we move. The king. He moved, we move. Now, clearly, we can't go to f7. We have to go and stay. His square is 2x2 now. You see that? It's now h8, h7, g7, and h8. I got to get to h7. He moved. I don't care. But he moved his king. I don't care because my plan is to play b3. He queened it. I take the queen or bishop or whatever. Now, the mistake is don't push because, look, he's in the square of this pawn. The problem with kings and pawns is when pawns capture away from the king, they get further away. So now I go from a 4x4 here. He's in the square. I'm going to go to a 3x3 where he's not close. So this will take a little while to understand all the elements, but this will give you a base to cover what's going on. When you see me do this multiple times, you'll understand what's going on, and it's fantastic. Okay, this is another easy problem. Well, and your guys are probably saying, huh, easy for you. So, look what we have here. Man, my dad was really, working on this, and it was really a big deal when he was able to stop it. My dad had a book that he called his Book of Mistakes. We would go play tournaments. If he made a mistake in a tournament, he would write it down in his book to help him remember. That's just the way he operated. So he was like, man, this guy got me with a pawn fork. I can't let him pawn fork me. Okay, which was, very funny. But so I see that when I see a knight and a bishop on bishop f4 and knight d4, I'm thinking e5 pawn fork, right? It looks juicy. Don't be hasty, which means hasty means you're moving too quickly without thinking. Think first, move second. I'm teaching you that one. Think first, move second. So what happens is this. Look, if I play e5, this pawn here, if I move it to e5, he has a secret cheap shot way out. He can play knight takes knight. This is what I call removing liability. He'd have 2 liabilities, his bishop and his knight, under attack by my pawn, right? Well, he takes one of them. He takes a piece. Knight takes knight. I can take the bishop if I want to, but then his knight just runs away, knight back to d4, and he didn't lose anything. So what we like to do is we want to fix, not repair, but fix meaning nail down. We want to nail down his liability to where it can't go anywhere good. And that would be knight takes knight. Now we've transferred the knight into a queen and a bishop. This pawn fork is crushing. That's because we nailed down a liability to a bad square by exchanging knights. Now, as a smart guy would do, he's trying to sneak out and hope that we're stupid and greedy and hasty and play pawn takes free bishop. Oh, I got pawn takes free bishop. He goes queen takes free queen. Oh, I have seen this so many times. And you have too if you've been around. So, again, we think before we move. We thought about that knight takes knight and then e5 pawn fork. Fantastic. Well, look, our queen is not defended. So our queen needs to move out of the way. In this case, queen takes queen. This is what I call removal of liability. Our queen is the liability undefended. So we play queen takes queen. He's going to play bishop takes, and I'm going to play pawn takes free bishop, just like my father would say. Pawn takes free bishop. Thank you. Okay, now what? So far, these have been pretty good. Not too difficult. Now, that was a 1900 problem that we beat. For some of you guys, you're probably like, oh my God, I've never gone this far before. So, this is what practice, when your coaches or your parents tell you to practice your game, whatever that game is. In this case, it's chess. When you practice your game, you play like me. I played thousands of games with my father. And I literally am not joking, thousands. Sometimes we would play 10 or 15 games in an evening because it was the 70s and there wasn't anything else to do except watch TV. So my dad was the biggest chess freak you've ever seen. He wasn't a great player. He was a 1500 player. He was not a great player. But man, nobody enjoyed the game like my dad. He enjoyed losing, not very much, but he enjoyed playing someone, and the chance of winning that in itself was an enjoyment. Okay? Hey, you don't win them all. Nobody does. But no one enjoyed playing chess more than my dad. So, he trained me because he was like, well, I was the oldest child. And, he got me when I was either, I was either 7 or just about to turn 8. So, I think I was 7 years old when I learned how to play chess, but I was either just turned 7 recently or was about to turn 8. I don't remember specifically because when you're 7, you don't keep track of that stuff. You got your entire life ahead of you. Okay? So, but I played chess with my dad and he would beat the heck out of me, obviously. And then, I started over time, I would pick up a win here or there. By the time I was, 11 and 12, I was starting to win more frequently, maybe 25% of the time. Okay, which is enough to like, hey, you can see you're making the turn. You're going, I am getting somewhere. He's not destroying me like he always destroys me. So, by the time I was 13, we were like dead even. And it really got good. So anyway, let me look at this guy. Okay, so now I've been looking at this off and on, basically telling you this, funny stories. But what jumped out at me is bishop to e8, and that is the white square bishop attacking this rook. That jumps out at me because he can't play well. I say when the chess player says he can't play fill in the blank, that means if he plays it, it's going to be bad for him. He can always play it, but the message is that he can't play. For example, white cannot play rook takes rook on f5 because it's bad for him because I would play pawn takes rook and I'm going to win his bishop for nothing. Okay, that's why I say quotations. He can't play rook takes rook. He can always play it. But in this case, it's bad. So that's what any chess player means when the grandmaster says, well, he can't play rook takes f5. Well, you can trust the guy who's saying that. He cannot play move whatever because that player is a good player and he recognizes that there's a penalty to pay if you make that bad move. So that's what he's saying. So anyway, he should not play rook takes f5 because pawn takes rook, and I'm going to win his bishop for free. So if I used bishop to e8 and attack his rook, he's got to move. Or I'm going to play bishop takes rook, which is good for black. Now again, we're even. 2 rooks. He's got 2 rooks. Queen, queen. 2 minor pieces. He's got 2 minor pieces. Bishop and knight versus 2 bishops. Don't worry about that. 5 pawns. 3, 4, 5. He's got 7 pawns. He's got 2 pawns more than me. But his king is a little loose because we have 3. Our 3 major pieces are really barreling down at him. Okay, they're staring down at him like snipers. So we have another sniper, the bishop on e8. This other dark squared bishop is sniping the h4 square. So look at these are like a bunch of snipers here. So we got this sniper on e8. If he goes rook to f6, what can we do? Well, one of the things we might be able to do is play rook takes bishop. Check. Suckering, trying to sucker the king to take the rook so that queen to g7 check, and this rook is now in bad shape. I mean, this king is in bad shape, potentially. That's what we're hoping for. Trying to figure out if this is working or not. Objectively, this doesn't look that great. But, we're trying to figure it out. We could also play rook takes rook. Queen, he could play queen takes rook, and then we hit them with that sniper again of bishop to e8. That might be a good move. Because what it also does is it allows us, well, we may not, instead of bishop to e8, we could play rook takes rook. The bishop cannot take because it's pinned by our rook on g7. So if we play rook takes rook on h5, queen takes, we could play actually rook takes h7, and look at this queen. It can't go backwards. We'll take it. Can't go here. It could go here. This is very interesting. He is in trouble. Yeah, you're in trouble, dude. This dude is in major league trouble. I'm taking rook takes rook. Because this move, rook takes h7, is a nasty move. Oh, dude, it's super nasty. He'd have to play queen to g6. And then I think I can just play rook to g7, and he's dog meat. Because notice that my pawns guard f5, e4, and d3. This knight is here to block the retreat. Yep, I won his queen. That's why he took it. So this was not obvious. Very difficult problem. So if you did not get this, if you're a young kid or not a high-rated player, there's nothing wrong with that fact that you didn't get this problem. It's a difficult problem. Like my chemistry professor, Dr. Garcia, said, when someone's really good at doing something, they make what they're doing look easier. And he made chemistry look really easy when it really wasn't. That guy was a phenomenal professor. PhD, research chemist, absolutely top-notch. But ironically, the most important lesson he taught me was not chemistry. It was the fact that when you're great at something, or really close to being great at it, you make it look easy. Like Tiger Woods makes golf look easy. So, look at this guy. His king cannot move. If we could check him, it's checkmate. And I'm a semi-greedy guy. So I'm thinking I could play. Now, if I move this bishop, we can check him with this rook, right? That seems fairly obvious. Now, he's really going, the problem is I have to worry about, again, my father's rule is the best rule in chess ever. What's he trying to do to me? He's trying to rook takes my queen, all right? So if I don't check him, he's going to play rook takes queen. I think it's fairly obvious. I know I'd take it. I'm pretty sure you would too. So I got a couple of moves here. I have the bishop can move anywhere it wants to go for free because this is a discovered attack, which is check, discovered check. So look at what I can do. I could go bishop to e4, threatening to take this knight. Check. I could go bishop to f5. backing up this queen, threatening to go maybe to d7, but this is also check. I could go bishop to g6, check, threatening to play bishop takes rook. You know, I could play bishop takes h7, check. The only thing I can't do is move my bishop and attack his queen. Nobody's perfect. So what happens when I look at this is that now, you know, the trick of this position is not to look at the bishop. Don't worry about the bishop. Forget the bishop. We're going to move it to check him. So if we move the bishop to any square and check him, where is he going to go? Well, he could play knight to d7, right? But that move is terrible. It's a checkmate. I'm not even going to tell you. You can look at it yourself later on and go, oh, he was right, it was checkmate. So he's not going to go knight to d7, trust me. Now, he could go knight to d5. That is also not a good move, but that's okay. What else could we do? We could play... when we move the bishop to check him, doesn't matter where we go. Once we find out his move, then we're going to find out where the bishop goes to give us an option to counter whatever his move is. And I'm telling you, if we move the bishop to check him, he will play bishop to d6, which is the dark square right here. Okay? This is where his bishop is going. So now that I have told you the secret of this position, bishop moves to any square that I want to go to, that you want to go to. Bishop d6 stops the check, and he's still alive, no problem. Now, bishop c4, no good. Bishop b5, no good. Bishop a6, no good. Bishop e4, no good. And I'll show you why. Bishop to g6, no good. That's not no good. Bishop takes rook is okay, but nothing special. It's not terrible. If you went bishop to g6, and then bishop takes rook on e8, that's an average move. So if you're under 1500, you could do better, but I'd understand why you failed as a lower rated player. It's the rook, man. Bishops take rook is a good move. Now, again, you got to look at this position. We're down a rook and a knight. We can't be winning pieces. We have to checkmate this guy. He's got this rook in the corner. We only have one rook. He's got two. There's his extra rook in the corner, and he's got an extra knight, either the f6 or the c6. One of these, he's got two extra pieces. So he's got two extra pieces. We can't be playing to win a piece. That doesn't do it. We're still losing. We're going to checkmate this guy. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, the secret is, when he plays bishop to d6, look what I have. If my bishop is on f5, well, fancy that. I have control over d7, don't I? So, bishop to f5, you're like, well, that move doesn't do anything. He goes bishop to d6, and you can't play queen to d7, or queen takes rook, and I go, that's right, you're correct, but I have another move. And my other move is rook takes d6. You probably said, what? That's correct. Rook takes d6. This is called a destruction sacrifice. We're destroying the fortress of the king. Now, what happens is, rook takes d6 check. He has only one move. Okay, he has two moves. Knight d7, I queen checkmate him. He's not going to play that one. Pawn takes bishop, and then I go knight takes pawn check. And guess what? He'd go to c8, but that bishop is here on f5, isn't he? Son of a gun. This is why bishop f5 is the move. But the secret of this position is to figure out what his defensive move was, which is bishop to d6. And it's a good move. I happen to have a better move that's called bishop to f5. Now, would you like to see it? It's a beauty. Oh, now remember what I told you. Don't assume your opponent plays the best move. I mean, don't assume he doesn't. Assume that he plays the best move, which is bishop to d6. Because if he plays something that's not the best move, we're going to eat him for breakfast. Rook takes knight. You have not changed anything. Now he plays the move I told you he was going to play. And you're asking me, how did you know? I pointed it out. It's forced. He doesn't have a choice. The thing is, you've got to ask yourself the right questions to get to the right answer. It's just like being Sherlock Holmes, or some of you understand it, ask your parents, who is Matlock? Rook takes bishop destruction, sacrifice. And remember what I told you? Queen takes pawn check, and that bishop guards c8, and I saw it a mile away. Now I'm going to take him with checkmate. Booyah! That one was very difficult. It's okay if you can't remember how to do it. If you look back at it, you're not going to remember all of these. You don't have to remember all of them. You get better by remembering them. The idea is one game at a time. You don't have to be a superstar all in one day. Okay, what are we at now? That problem was a 2024, and we made it look easy. Okay, remember that's what my chemistry professor taught me. Okay, so this is all very interesting. Got a couple of ideas, maybe. Actually, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm working on it. Well, one of the things I notice is we got a couple of guys hitting f5, the knight. Whenever this bishop moves, I get an attack on d5. If that's any good, I don't know. We'll see. We're in the beginning, we're just making observations, trying to learn what's in this position within reason. So I got that move. That's not really that great. No, that's not very good, actually. I see it now. Here's the dealio. I was correct. Remember when I said I had a couple of guys hitting this knight? Well, guess what? I'm going to crisscross this knight with queen to g4, and how many guys are attacking the knight? 1, 2, and if my queen's on g4, that's 3. How many defenders does he have? 1, 2, and 2. He doesn't have a third one. So if I go queen to g4, his knight is pinned to his queen. Now, if he could move his knight with a check, then he'd be okay. He could move it and then move his queen out of danger. He can't. So it was simply a matter of 3 attackers versus 2 defenders, and the target could not move. It was a one-move win. It looks easy, but it's not easy. Okay, now, do you remember early on when I mentioned bump and score? This is a bump and score. You know what the bump and score is? He took our rook. Actually, he took something else. We could play rook takes rook and get our piece back, right? I don't care about that. I see bump and score. Bump. There's the bump. You see the score? There's the score. They'll be greedy and play rook f1 because this rook is pinned by his rook. Queen takes free rook, check, mate. Bump and score. Well, this is very impressive, but you can't do anything. Notice our pawn beautifully guards the only square this rook could check us on. So this rook is not a threat to me. You check me, I will take you. Forget you, buddy. So what happens is this. Actually, I'm not sure. Okay. Yes, I am sure. The square of this board is f2. f2 is f2, this pawn. How many defenders does he have? 1 king and 1 rook. That's 2. How many attackers do I have? 1 rook, x-rays to this guy. X-ray meaning goes through our own guy. All right? So this is an x-ray rook attacks, that's 1. We have another rook in front of it, that's 2. And we have a king, number 3. Now the key thing is this. The number is 3 versus 2, very important. But the most important thing of all is the order of attack. I can never attack with my king first, that's illegal. Now, as far as my 3 attackers go, as long as the king is the third and last of the attackers, we win. Same thing for the defense. If his king is the first defender, well then it's overpowered by 2 pieces because it can't take one of them. But if you have 2 versus 2 and your last defender is your king, you win. So the order of attack is very important. You don't want your expensive king or your expensive queen to be the first one to die on the exchange, obviously. So we're going to play rook takes pawn. Now remember, I could have just played this move, but I'm trying to teach you how to play this to win, and that is to visualize this as I say it. Rook takes pawn. Rook takes... Now remember, this rook can't check us. We just play pawn takes free rook. This rook doesn't even matter. I don't even imagine him being on the board. Rook takes rook. Rook takes f2. Rook takes rook on f2. Check. Rook takes rook on f2. Counter. There's no check. I mean, next move I'm going to play rook f1 checkmate. So this rook move is irrelevant. Check me, I take it, and then checkmate you in the next move. I don't care. The winning move is rook takes f2. Check. Well, so what? Good move. Real good move. The problem for him is that I'm a master and then some of what? I hope you said king and pawn endgames. Rook takes rook for black, wins this. Easily. Do you see why? Why is black winning this? I will tell you in 3, 2, 1. Okay. You're back. Or I'm back, or somebody's back. I don't know. What happens is, this pawn cannot be threatened. 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. Queen check mate. That's why. Oh, you got this one even better. D4, C6. D3, C7. D2, he queens, I queen with check, it's mate. That's why I won. Okay, now this one is a real simple one. You see this? Remember I showed you in the beginning? You have this bishop and queen together. We'll draw the line and see what happens. Holy moly, look what this does. I can play queen takes h7 and lose my queen to knight takes queen, right? Well, that move is terrible. It's a horrible move until I destroy this defender. Notice his king is the only defender of this square and his knight, but I can kill the knight. So bishop kills knight. This is called removal of defender. I remove the defender. What the heck was that? What the heck is that? That is just craziness. Oh, yes, I made a mistake. My bad. I saw it now. My mistake. I had it and I overlooked something. Okay. That was terrible. It was an easy win. I blew it. Okay, it doesn't matter. We'll continue. Hey, mistakes happen. You got to get over it. Now, the general idea normally happens here in this kind of position where knight plays to g4. I'm threatening to check this king and rook, right? The problem is I'm not doing anything other than just going to check this guy. And he would just play rook to f1, having 2 protectors. I can't play knight to f2. But now I'm a smart guy. I go, you know, I have this bishop you can take. Let me attack your queen. Knight to e4 attacks the queen. So now I'm threatening this move and I'm attacking his queen. Okay. So now what do? We have a couple of ideas. Well, what's the right move is the question. The right move is obvious. Well, it's obvious to me. The right move, well, the more I think about it, the less obvious it becomes. Okay, the right move is one of 2 moves. It's either bishop takes bishop or queen takes bishop. So let's look at queen takes first. Just pick one. The reason I'm looking at queen takes is because it threatens to take this rook as well. Queen takes. I'm going to take this rook in the corner if he doesn't stop it. The problem he has is that if he stops it with, he can stop it with this knight on knight to c3, but then I can play queen takes c3. Not great, not terrible, it's a good move. Queen takes bishop. He can play c3, not good. In fact, it's really terrible. Any move that doesn't take my queen, I answer with knight to f2 check, and he's destroyed. So queen takes d4. If he goes like c3, knight f2 check, he either has to play queen takes knight or king to g1, and at that point, I get him with the discovered check of either knight takes rook or knight to h3 check. This is all kinds of terrible. So queen takes bishop, queen takes queen, bishop takes, well, that's terrible actually. I can't do that. So I can't play queen takes. He plays queen takes, bishop takes, rook takes bishop, and I'm losing. Forget that garbage. Oh, queen takes bishop, queen takes queen, knight checks, then I take his queen, and then I take his rook. No, I can't do that either. Queen takes is wrong. It loses. So we play bishop takes. We're threatening his rook. Now it's fine. We're also threatening his queen. The problem he has, now he can play queen takes bishop, which is fine. I hit this guy check. He moves, queen takes queen. God dang it, he does it again. He does it again. Wait a second. That can't be right. Bishop takes bishop. Bishop takes bishop. Man, this is really annoying. I thought this was fairly obvious, and it's not. Check. Goes to there. That's terrible. So bishop takes bishop. Queen captures bishop. What if I could play knight takes queen. He could play, that doesn't work either. Oh yes, it does. Knight captures queen. This is a goofy one, man. This is a hard one. Knight takes queen. I'm taking his queen on d2. He takes my queen with a bishop. His rook attacks my knight. My pawn attacks his bishop. So knight takes queen, bishop takes queen. Then I can play bishop takes rook in the corner. He's got a problem. He can only take my knight or move his bishop. If he takes my knight, I take his bishop. I'm sorry, I take his queen, he takes my queen. I take his rook, he takes my knight. I take his bishop, he takes my bishop on d7. So what he's captured 3, I've captured 3, but I've captured queen, rook, and bishop. He's captured queen, bishop, and knight. I win an exchange by playing knight takes queen. As much as I wanted to take on d4, it doesn't work. What? Oh, I don't know, man. Okay. Check. Check, check, and you are in trouble. Okay. That was winning. My move was winning on that last one, but they might have a different move that they say wins better. I'll look at it and we'll see if it's any good or not. So, queen to h7 check. He cannot go to f8 because it's checkmate. So, he can go to f6. Queen takes f7 check. King to g5 is the only move possible. And then I would play f4 check. And that's checkmate. You lose. Queen h7 check. Queen takes f7 check. My rook guards the h-file, knight guards g4, f4 guarded by my queen, checkmate. I ain't playing with you, dummy. We have, that's not any good. This is a great move. Rook takes f2 check. He's got problems. Or does he? Yeah, it's problems to a degree. Yeah, I saw that, Bobby. Problem is, do I have a move for this guy? Do I? I do. Now, there's a killer move for black. Look at this for a few seconds while I get a drink and you see if you can figure it out. There's two kinds of players. The kinds of players that can see this move on their own, and the kind of players that have someone like me show it to them so they can play it in the future. It doesn't matter whichever one you are because both of them are winners. Now, would you like to see the brilliant move that I see? And man, is it good. I have rook takes rook check. Isn't that awesome? He plays bishop takes rook, but that's not the move I'm playing. This is the move I'm playing. That pinned his bishop. His bishop, if his bishop captures, look at this. I played bishop to f6, double exclamation. This is a brilliant move. If he takes my bishop, I play rook takes d2 check. This is the in-between move. In-between move is a tactic where you play it that interrupts a sequence of moves. And when it has a check, it has a tendency to destroy the other guy. So he didn't play that move. He played rook takes rook. Well, guess what? I play bishop takes bishop. Check. That's a fork of king and rook, and then bishop takes e1. So, that was awesome. Now, what is this guy doing? Okay, one of the things that's key, I'm explaining this to you right now. This knight, no matter what this knight does, he cannot check my king. Knights have to be on the same color as your king to check them when they move. So no move this guy makes can check me because I'm on white and he's on dark. So I don't worry about this knight. He's not a threat to me. I have a pretty good move called knight takes rook. What's so cool about it is that I take this rook for this knight, and his knight is under attack, both by my knight and by this pawn. So what's going to happen is that I'll take his rook. Knight takes rook. He's going to play knight takes knight. Well, if he does play knight takes knight, queen takes bishop, because this is a discovered attack. He discovers an attack on my queen, but his knight is not defended. So that doesn't help. Knight takes rook. So if he moves his knight, remember the pawn is attacking my knight. His bishop is attacking my queen. So knight takes rook. He goes knight back to f3, guarding his bishop. So now his bishop is guarded and is attacking my expensive queen. And his pawn, his lowly pawn, is attacking my knight. Well, too bad, Charlie. I have a move for you. I could play knight to g5, which loses. It looks good, but your eyes can deceive you. That's what Obi-Wan said. That's not the move. The move that's killing is I have knight to c3. I also have knight to f6. I gotta look at this and see which of these is better. Knight takes rook, knight to f3. The thing I like about knight to f3 is that it keeps his queen from messing with me. So I don't have to worry about any checks from that stupid hag. So, yes, I could play, well, actually, no, I could play that move. Now, retrospectively, I could play knight to g5 because I'd be threatening knight takes knight. In fact, knight to g5 is a winner. Knight takes rook. Eat this. Now, when I go knight to g5, I was thinking, he could pile up on me with a queen on attacking g5, which he could, queen to d2. Or he could play f4, except that he can't play f4, and I have an e5 pawn, even if he could play f4. So knight to g5, I'm threatening to play knight takes knight check. And if he does something about that, I can play f6 and then just retreat my knight, and he's out of luck. Pawn captures knight. I won a rook. Thanks for the free rook, buddy. Okay, look at this nasty move. And this is a nasty move right here. You see this? You see this b2 square in front of his king? I got a queen here that can really make use of that. However, I have something else that makes better use. Bishop to g2 check. Bishop to b2 check. Look what he has to do. He has to walk head first into a discovered check, because he can't play king to d2. He's toast. I could take this knight, which is a good move. Yeah, in fact, that's actually the best move. No, it's not. It's not the best move. Bishop takes knight is a good move, but he can play queen to b3 and stop immediate checkmate. If I go bishop to c3, I guard him. King c1 is no good because it doesn't matter. He can't escape to d2. The bishop guards it. I'm going to checkmate him. He's going to queen check me. He's going to queen check me. Knight takes, queen takes, king to g7. Or I don't even have to do it. I can just take it. I can just go there. So anyway, bishop to c3 check. Checkmate. Okay, this is another fantastic move. What did he take? Did he take a knight from me, that freak? Took a bishop? Boy, you got a lot of nerve. Look at this guy. He took my bishop. My queen is right there. I just take it back. Except I do this because it's better. Well, well, well. That's all very interesting, but irrelevant. This pawn was pinned by my bishop. So now what I can do is bishop takes pawn check. King cannot take it, because my queen guards it. This is one of those curiosities. He's got two pieces defending. I've got two pieces. I'm got one piece defending. Two attackers and one defender. But this queen is pinned by my queen, so he can only take my queen. And this bishop can't be taken by his king because I would take his king and win the game. So bishop takes pawn check. Now I get to play what move? I could play queen checks and queen takes knight. I could play bishop takes rook and then queen checks. That doesn't work actually. No, I'd check him here. If I play bishop takes rook, he can't play queen takes queen. Well, again, he can, but it's bad because bishop snaps back and takes it. Okay, and I'm 3 pawns ahead. Bishop takes rook. Fine, I don't care. I'm taking your knight. I'm still going to be 3 pawns ahead, dummy. Check. Check again. So I went through all that, and I came out 3 pawns ahead. Awesome. Awesome to the max. Okay, I hate these positions. They're super difficult. So if you hate these positions because they're super difficult, it ain't you. It's true. They're difficult. What's difficult is there's so many checks and so many defensive moves you got to figure out, and it's hard. Oh well, but I'm here to do the job, baby. All right, let's rock. Okay, what is he trying to do to us? Well, really, he would White would love to trade queens here because he's winning. He's got 4 pawns against our pawn and bishop. It's good for him. Now, Luckily, this one might be easier from the context of we don't want to go queen to b2 and trade queens because we would just flat out lose. Oh, man, I don't know. Queen to b2 is actually not bad. If I play queen to b2, he's got to defend. He can defend, and I can't stop it. So it's not a good move. Because queen to b2, he goes king to e4. That's the best move. Bishop to c6 check, and he gets to go to the dark square. If this was blocked, like by a knight, or or a rook, if this was blocked by a rook, we'd win this by just checking him, and taking his dadgum queen. But that's not what's happening, so we got to live with what's on the board. So the other move that I see, because of this bishop, the bishop is kind of corralling him here. If we go queen to b4 check, he only has one legal move, and one of my rules is if he has only one legal move, you're probably winning. So queen b4 check, king to c4. So we create queen to c4. What do we have? Well, we do have, I'm sorry, king to d5. Sorry. Queen b4, king d5, queen to c4 check. Again, he has only one legal move, which is d6. We're sort of making progress. We have, let's just go again. We're on c4. Let's go king to c6, queen to c6 check. He's on d6, queen b4, queen to b4, king to d5, queen to c4, king to d6, queen to c6 is correct. He has no moves. He's checkmated, sir. Game over. So now we figured it out, but because these are so difficult, let's run it again and make sure. Queen to b4 check, only move, king d5. Queen to c4 check, only move, king to d6. Queen to c6 check, queen owns this, owns this, owns this. He's here. We own this, we own this. The bishop owns this, the king owns this. It's checkmate. It's either checkmate or we made the same mistake twice. And I don't hardly ever make the same mistake twice. It does happen. Probably two answers right there. Okay, but look, I got 46. The odds are in my favor. The odds are this is 47 victories. Checkmate. I hate these because they're hard, but when you think about it, and we use the bishop, his control helped tell me that he was corralling this king. So this is checkmate, sir, because our king got him. Okay, now what? Looks fairly basic. Some of you out there probably going, basic? What are you, crazy? I might be. It looks basic. I'll tell you why it looks basic to me. What I see is that D pawn on D3 is pinned by my rook on D1. So if I take rook takes E2, which is the rook takes rook, if he plays pawn takes rook check, a nasty move, I get to follow that up with bam, bam, bam. I can follow that move up with queen if I want to. I can play either queen to E8, rook to E8, or queen to A1, stopping his pawn from queening. So that's all that really is interesting to me. His queen doesn't have any kind of fancy trick moves. I can tell. So let's look and see. What is he threatening? That's my father's #1 rule. Okay, here's the problem with going to E8. If I put anything on E8, he goes queen checks and queens the pawn. Well, that loses. So I told you I had rook to E8 or queen to E8 or queen to A1 to block this queen. Well, guess what? Queen to E1. Now this genius is going to push this. Well, guess what? I'm also a genius. Did I tell you that? Well, I didn't tell you. I told you now. Queen to E1. So long, chump. My next move is rook to D2. I'm going to eat this pawn. You don't have to be a genius. It just helps. I don't want to brag, you know, I'm just telling you the way it is. So here's what we got. Got a couple of good moves, actually. In fact, I think one's better than the other. We have rook takes C3 check, which is pretty good. You know, it ends this threat of bishop pawn takes pawn. He goes king to B8, which I don't like because it's a good move for him. And this is another secret I need to tell you. When your opponent plays a good move, the good players admit that their opponent played a good move. I'm trying to beat whoever I'm playing, but I'm not there to be rude about it. Some people are. I like beating those guys because then if they want to be rude first, well, it's not nice to be rude, but if they start it, it's okay for me to finish it. So I'm not a rude guy. You know, I'm there to play a game, and if you win fair and square, then you know I shake your hand, congratulations, and vice versa. I expect the same thing. I'm in the butt kicking business, and business is good. So I'm not out there, you know, to be rude to people. So if your opponent plays a good move, the good player gets good because he recognizes good moves no matter who plays it. If your friend plays a good move, great. You know, and if the guy that your friend is playing plays a good move, you're like, well, that was a good move, man. You know, I can't hate the move because it's a good move. So be positive and be respectful of others. There's no reason to be a jerk. So I'm going to play, I don't like rook takes pawn check because king to b8 is a good move for black. The black king in this position, his best place is to be behind this pawn. A smart player puts his king on b8 if he has a chance, okay? That's just smart chess. I don't care who it is. So my thinking is that, you know what, I'm not going to take this with check. I want to take bishop takes pawn. Two things. I want to attack this queen because I'm also attacking this pawn, and maybe if I'm lucky by whatever happens, I might get this rook too. So I'm thinking bishop takes pawn. Now, if he wants to check me and trade queens, that's all good because after the queen trade, I got bishop takes pawn check, and I get that rook that I was telling you about. So bishop takes pawn is a vicious move. Number one, is a terrific defensive move because it locks down the king side against attacks. He can't trade queens. We just showed that queen takes queen, rook takes queen, bishop takes pawn, check, loses for black. So I play bishop takes pawn. I'm threatening his queen, threatening this pawn, and if luck, I get the rook. But I'm threatening any of the things on this long diagonal, and it gets to be with a discovered check because I'm holding this in reserve. Bishop takes pawn is an awesome move. I told him. You heard me tell him. You can't do this. Queen takes queen and you lose. He did it. I told him not to do it, and he did it anyway, so I'm going to go bishop takes pawn. Wait a second. Just to make sure, sometimes it's, you know, there'll be a checkmate in these positions. There isn't one here, but I'm looking. Never hurts to look. Looking is free. Use visualization skills. Bishop takes pawn check, you lose, buddy. Bishop takes free rook. That's what my father would say. How you like me now? Grasshopper. Okay, what are we at? We are at a minor piece down. He's got two bishops, we got one knight. So we are a minor piece at a minor piece deficit. Okay, the first thing that jumps out after I said that is that, look, If we play queen to a2, which is right here where the mouse pointer is, I'm threatening a checkmate. So he can't do anything without just addressing the fact that I'm threatening to checkmate him. That is the number one threat in this position. Queen a2, I'm threatening mate. Now, the problem he has, by moving this bishop to e1 to open a slot, I will checkmate him anyway with knight checks. No, not there. I'd go knight to e2 check because the rook will guard d2, and then I'll checkmate him with my queen. So queen a2, bishop to e1 loses. Bishop to anywhere loses. Bishop stays there, loses because it's checkmate. So that doesn't work. So can he create another move like c3? The answer is that doesn't work. Checkmate. Okay, so he can't run. Well, he could try to run, but it fails. Queen a2 is an awesome move, man. The more I look at it, the better I like it. The more I look at queen a2, the better I like it. Okay? And by the way, this will be move number 50. The last two problems we beat were 2600 problems, which are pretty tough. But this one will be over 2700, and this will be 50. And 50 is no joke. Only good players score a 50 on Puzzle Rush. It's super difficult, as you have seen. I made a couple mistakes. One that was obvious, the other one I'm not too sure. I got to check it out and see. But queen a2, the more I look at it, the more this checkmate looks unstoppable. And unstoppable means he could throw pieces away to delay it. But it's unstoppable because it's going to end in checkmate. Because like I said, if he moves his bishop anywhere, it's knight to e2, and the rook takes over the control of d2. I'm playing knight, queen to a2. If I lose, so be it. Awesome move. I told you that move is trash. Now, most people would think, I'm going to check him. Knight, b3 check. But this pawn takes knight, opens up the gate. This closes it. I reclose the gate with the rook. Knight to e2 check. You lose, buddy. Queen to a1 checkmate. That's a 50. And I post 50s. All right, brother. How does it feel now? Oh, dude, you're dead. This is super dead. Do you see it? Rook captures rook. Check. Forced. King takes. Queen to h6. Check. It's mate. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's got this. Fine. We just check him first. Doesn't matter. Rook takes rook. King takes rook. Hey, check. You can go to there. Yes. I check you. No, you can't go there. Check. Okay. Check. Check. Dude, it might work, actually. The queen move might actually work with a long sequence of checks. I know for a fact that the rook move wins. Holy moly, that doesn't win? I thought for sure that was a winner. I looked at that move, but I didn't think that was the right possibility. Because I didn't look at it very far, obviously. Because it's clearly winning. King takes queen, you lose. Ladder mate. Ugh, my mistake. Well, this was an hour and 53 minutes. Oops. All right. This was cut off prematurely. That was wrong. Let's look at this other one that I missed somehow. Yeah, dude, my move was winning on this one, but knight e4 is correct. Bishop takes. Goes to there. Knight checks. Okay. Knight takes rook is winning, idiot. Because my queen is defended. Yes, I thought he was going to play knight. Queen takes knight. I saw this position in my analysis, in my brain, in my visualization, but I didn't realize my queen was protected. Whoops. That explains why I blew it. Because this wins bigger than, I mean, I won a piece. This wins a piece and cleans the queens off the board. Even better. You got me on that one. This one, I know the mistake I made. The mistake I made was this one. I'll show you. I was correct in bishop takes knight, but knight takes knight is the killer move. Knight takes knight, because no matter what he does, I'm taking this knight with the bishop or the knight. Because I played bishop takes knight, he plays knight takes knight, and then now I lose my checkmate. That was my fault. So watch, knight takes knight's the move. Now, whatever he chooses, the bishop on g5 or the knight on d5 captures the knight. And we checkmate him on h7, my mistake. Hey, mistakes happen. It was a 2200 problem. No problems. Bishop takes knight, game over, buddy. And then, well, it's not checkmate, it's queen takes free bishop. I only need a piece anyways, whatever. So now he takes it, and I end up, he would end up taking pawn captures bishop. I would just move over here, knight to c3, or knight to g3, and then I'm a knight up. I've got one knight ahead of him. He's dead. So, no one's perfect, and I'm living proof. You watched me miss 3. But the thing is, don't look at it as I made 3 mistakes. I made 50 accurate combinations. I beat it, and you guys may not have seen it before, but this one was a 20. The last one I beat was a 27-48. Super difficult. I'm getting better. I beat 50 more often now than I have been, but this was almost 2 hours because this was the special edition for kids or low-rated players. I'm telling you, this is really the good stuff. So go back and check these positions. Check out the ones that I did well. Check out the ones you did well, and work on the ones that stop you. And go through this list again after if you've seen it. Go through it again and then try to predict what moves I'm going to play. This will help you get stronger. Nothing will make you stronger than playing through these problems like I have done here. Using the ones that I have, trying to predict the move that I make. Hey, do you predict the move that I make? Do you make the right move? Do you make a mistake? If so, watch the correct move and you'll see why this will make you faster. Hikaru himself, he set a record of 83 problems, which is an unbelievable record. He says nothing makes you stronger faster than solving problems like these and working through these videos. I'm telling you. Don't take it from me. Take it from Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. The guy's a terrific player, okay? So like this video, tell your friends, but don't tell your enemies because they're going to use this against you. You guys are awesome. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope I helped you a lot. Send me a message in the comments. I will talk to you guys later.